All right, so this workshop is about technical resumes and interviewing. My name is Reve Hitt, and I am one of the assistant directors and career counselors in the Career Center for Engineering and Physical Sciences. So I primarily work with students in those areas. In this workshop will be helpful for anyone who's interested in careers like data analytics, data science, software engineering, mechanical engineering, civil engineering, and other related roles. And a lot of this is kind of general advice as well that could be applied to, any position, but I will be integrating pieces specific to technical roles. The agenda here, I'm going to give just a brief introduction about the Career Center. So you are all familiar with our resources and our services. And then I'm going to spend about equal time discussing technical resume writing and then technical interviewing tips. And of course, we'll have time to address questions as well as we go. So yeah, those of you who are here in the Zoom room, could you put in the chat or just mention verbally what your major is? Nice. And then if you're interested in technical roles, could you put what kinds of roles, whether they're internships or jobs? Sounds good, thank you. All righty, so let's start with the first section here. So the Career Center, why are we here? There's three things that we primarily support students with. The first is career clarity. So we can help you all with determining a direction, right? Talking through what are your interests, what are your skills, how do those match to different jobs that are out there? So you can come meet with us and we can help you determine, what some good opportunities are for you and help you make a plan, right, to get there. We also help you with competitiveness. So what that means is helping you have a competitive resume, have a competitive cover letter, and be able to go into an interview with confidence where you can speak, to your strengths and different things like that. Lastly, we support you with building connections with employers and alumni. So we have lots of events in which we facilitate these connections, whether they're career fairs or smaller, like more intimate coffee chats. But we have lots of ways that we can help you guys network. I also wanted to cover the recruitment timeline at Cal. So generally, right, in the work world, people will hire just before they need someone, maybe like a month or two before. But at a university like Berkeley, often the recruitment will happen very early because a lot of companies, they want to get the talent, they want to hire you guys as soon as they can before other people have a chance to. So usually if you're applying for a summer job or internship, you want to start your search in the fall semester, especially if you're interested in engineering or tech or banking or finance or consulting. Those industries recruit very heavily in the fall semester. But then in the spring, there's another wave of recruitment. You'll find those industries recruiting again, usually smaller companies in the spring, and then any other industry that I didn't mention will recruit in the spring in most cases. So those would be for summer internships and jobs, but you will also be able to find internships that happen in the fall or that happen in the spring as well. But most internships are offered in the summer, so I thought I'd just mention that you have those two timeframes to look for those positions. I wanted to include here the steps to apply to an internship or job, just so you have like an overview of the different steps to take, because I'm only focusing on a couple of these items, resumes and interviewing. But some other things to prepare would be your online presence. So making sure that you have a Handshake profile and a LinkedIn profile. Sometimes it'll be advantageous for a student to have a project website or a portfolio, depending on the role they're applying for. And I'm going to talk a little more about Handshake in a minute. But if you're not sure if you need a project website, definitely come speak with a career counselor and we can help you determine that, right? Based on the kinds of roles you're applying for. Attending Career Center events is another great step you can take. Like I mentioned, we've got career fairs and other events where you can meet with these people who are hiring, as well as network with alumni. And then just doing your own outreach. So reaching out to people who you already know or reaching out to people to build new connections can help in your job search. It could help increase your chances of interviewing at a company if you connect with someone who's already working there. Cool. So I'm also going to put a link of this presentation in the chat for those of you who are here, because as you can see, I have a ton of embedded links to the resources that we have on our website. So that way you'll have access to those that you can explore later. So if you haven't already, definitely create a Handshake profile. This is the one-stop shop for basically everything career in our office. So this is where you look for opportunities, where you can apply for internships and jobs. It's the #1 platform in the country for university recruiting. So most of the companies we work with, this is the first platform where they're going to post their opportunities if they're looking for students. There's other general job boards out there. You're welcome to use those, but we definitely recommend focusing on Handshake. In addition, you can register for all of our events on Handshake. You'll be able to see a huge list of what's upcoming, and these would be not only events that we host in the Career Center, but also events that companies are hosting. They're going to post them on the same platform. And then lastly, you can schedule appointments on this platform with career counselors. We also have a lot of like different resources and things like that to explore on here. And this is just pointing out where you can schedule an appointment. So when you log in, this is the homepage, and you can just click UC Berkeley Career Center to get to our appointment scheduling option. So in addition to career counselors, we also have peer advisors. So these are Cal students, just like yourselves, with various majors and career interests, but they're here to help you guys. They've got 15-minute drop-in hours. Right now, Monday through Thursday are in person, and then Friday is virtual. But they can help you with all of these items: resume reviews, cover letter reviews, talking through interviewing tips or networking tips. So our peers are a great place to start. If you're not really sure, right, what the Career Center can offer for you or how you want to engage, definitely just attend a drop-in session and they can support you with, determining how we could best help you as an office. So this would just be more details on our events. So our career fairs and these other events are all virtual right now. We're hoping to do some in-person events in the spring. But for our career fairs, you can schedule one-on-one video chats with the recruiters who are hiring for the roles that interest you. So it's a great way to just get that one-on-one attention from the company representatives who are hiring. Career connections are events where you network with alumni. So at any of these events, we'll have like 20 to 30 alumni, and they'll be in Zoom breakout rooms. Each alumni will have different careers, but there'll be like a general theme for the whole event, like data analytics or environment and sustainability. So everyone's career falls under the theme, but then you get to pick who you want to speak with, and you go into their breakout room and you can ask them questions. So you could, attend that event to just learn more about what is a career really like day to day, or what is it like to work at a particular company. And then we've got these other info sessions and coffee chats. Usually these are hosted by employers, or we'll have like an employer or professional representative for you to meet with, ask questions of. So kind of like a smaller version of Career Connections. And then we have workshops just like this, where it's primarily us counselors providing information for you guys. And then I encourage everyone to subscribe to Career Mail. So this would be a weekly or bi-weekly newsletter, depending on your career area, that we would send you. And it would have all of the upcoming events that are relevant to that career area, as well as opportunities outside of our office. So like opportunities for research or to get project experience. So this is a great way to get like a tailored list of upcoming events and opportunities, so you don't have to sift through everything in Handshake. So you can just look at this step by step on your own time. To subscribe, you would need to do that through Handshake. And this walks you through how to do that. Any questions about that first piece, about our services or resources? Okay, I'll move on to resumes, but feel free, of course, to put questions in the chat if you think of something later. So what is the purpose of a resume? It's to get your foot in the door. It's to get you the interview. So all items on your resume should market you as the right person for a particular opportunity that you're applying for. A lot of recruiters will be spending a few seconds looking at your resume. They often get a lot of applicants, so they don't, they need to kind of go through these quickly. So you want to make sure that you're going to capture their attention, right, in the first few seconds when they look at your resume. And I do see the question in the chat about using LinkedIn to explore, I imagine, internship and job positions. Yeah, that's totally a great tool that you can use in addition to Handshake. When we've surveyed employers, that is the second most platform they use next to Handshake. So they're definitely posting opportunities for you all there as well. Usually they'll post the same position in like multiple locations, but you only need to apply in one area or in one platform. All right, so back to some resume trends. So you want to be really targeted and tailored with your resume. The reason for this is companies are increasingly using tracking systems when you upload your resume that will parse through it to look for keywords that match the description of the internship or the job. So it's important to use as many keywords as you can from that description in your resume to show that you have the relevant skills. So for each position you apply for, you're going to change your resume slightly to rephrase things a little bit so that it's as relevant as possible. You can also include a LinkedIn URL on your resume or personal websites. This is really common nowadays to include those sorts of additional materials. Leadership is great to include on your resume. That's definitely a trend right now. Recruiters like to see leadership experience, regardless of what you're applying for. So if you've ever like mentored others or maybe taught others or like led a group on a project, then you can include those things in a leadership section. And then those tracking systems that I mentioned, right, that'll parse through your resume, they tend to only work well with resumes that are simply formatted. You want to avoid using fancy templates, especially templates that include tables or columns or text boxes or graphics or pictures. Avoid all of those things because those can potentially throw off a tracking system and it won't be able to read your resume. And then you might not hear back from the company and you're not sure why. So keep your formatting very simple. Use like a simple Word doc or Google Doc and then convert it to a PDF from there. PDFs are usually preferred, but it's possible that they might instruct you to upload a Word document or a different document. So make sure you're following, the instructions, but generally a PDF is good. And then you're going to want to title your resume document with your name included, or your initials at least, because if a recruiter saves it to their computer, then they can easily find it later. So how do you tailor the resume? How do you build it for each position? You're going to want to analyze the description of the role. So identify what are the most important skills needed for this position, and then highlight those words and those phrases so that you can make sure you're including those in your resume. You're going to want to think through your experience. When have you used the specific skills that they say are important? So, you can include lots of different things on your resume. You can include volunteering, internships, work experience, projects. You can include like caregiving that you might be doing for family members. You could include, maybe like babysitting or, other activities like that. As long as you're speaking to how it's relevant to the role, right? So even if you're applying to a technical position, like an engineering position, but you haven't had an engineering position before, that's totally okay. Because you can include projects to show your technical experience in the classroom, and then you can include other experiences to show your people skills, because those are important as well for any job. So what you want to do is really focus on the skills that the company says are important, and then include experiences in which you've used those skills. You want to keep your resume to one page, so you can also remove any irrelevant information that doesn't really fit the job posting. So the preferred format of a resume. The most relevant information should be first, because when we're thinking about how quickly some recruiters are looking at these resumes, we want to make sure that they see the most important information right at the top so that it entices them to read more. So you're going to usually have education first. For technical roles, it's good to have skills next, because that's likely one of the first things they're going to look for. They want to know, do you have the technical skills to do the job? But then from there, you want to include experiences that are going to be the most relevant, whether they're projects or internships or whatever, right? And then at the bottom of your resume, you can have less relevant experiences. You always want to include really clear headings in your resume and bullet points so that It's easy to find different sections and just easy to read. Generally, within each section, you want to keep things chronological, starting with the most recent position. And then in order to keep it to one page, you can have your margins be pretty small if you need them to be. You can also have a font size that's 10 point, but you don't want to go smaller than that. The best size would be 11 or 12 point, but you could go to 10 if you need to keep it to one page. And then lastly, spell out abbreviations. So for example, let's say you were in the URAP program, right? Undergraduate research program. You would want to spell out exactly what the acronym means rather than just putting the acronym or abbreviation, because recruiters probably won't know what that is, right? So it's usually best to just spell everything out and avoid abbreviations. All right, so this covers pretty much what I mentioned already. These are the general sections to include. Ultimately, it's going to be up to you to determine the best way to structure your resume in a way that's going to show your strengths the best. There's really no perfect way to put these together, but this is generally what we'd recommend. Have your education first, then your technical skills, and then your most relevant experience, relevant projects. And then at the bottom, you could have some leadership or extracurricular roles that are more people-centered. All right, and then last, let's cover how you can describe your experience. So it's best to avoid using passive language like my duties included or my responsibilities were. You want to use more active language by starting your bullet points with an action verb to describe a skill you exhibited, like built, created, analyzed, programmed. And then after describing the skill you used, it's good to include what the purpose of that was, right? How did you help improve things? Or what did you accomplish using that skill? If you can quantify the impacts of your work, that's great. That's really going to strengthen your bullet points. So, for example, if you're in a technical role, maybe like a data analyst, or if you're in engineering or something related, it's good to quantify how you help increase the accuracy or efficiency of a process. And you can do that for projects potentially, or like previous positions that we've held. You can also kind of generally include how you've helped save a company time or money if you've had a previous position. So this will look different, of course, for everyone, depending on what they've accomplished in the past. And we can support you individually in a career counseling appointment with how you can describe the outcomes of your work and maybe even quantify those outcomes. So sometimes this can be difficult, right? Sometimes we're in like a short-term project or short-term role. We might not even see the outcomes of our work, right? Or the impact. So it doesn't have to be for every single bullet point, but as much as possible, it's great to include that. All right, so any questions on resumes? Okay, I'm going to move on to interviewing, but once again, feel free to add them in the chat as we go. So there are lots of different kinds of interviews that you can come across. Generally, for technical roles, you'll have like 2 or 3 rounds of interviews for internships as well as jobs. But sometimes companies only have 1 round, and sometimes they might have upwards of 5 rounds. It really just depends. But usually there's going to be some sort of initial interview, like a screening, just to verify that you meet the minimum qualifications. Usually it's over the phone, maybe about 20 minutes with a recruiter. And then from there, they're going to likely want to assess your technical skills. So they might send you an assessment to do on your own, or they might ask you technical questions and you have to answer them or solve a problem in front of the interviewers. And then lastly, there's going to be what's called a behavioral interview, where they ask you common interview questions in which you're going to share examples of how you've used the relevant skills in the past. So they might ask you, like, how have you programmed something in the past? Or how have you designed a mechanical engineering project in the past? Or they might ask more generally, how have you accomplished something or worked on a team or overcome a challenge? So those would be behavioral questions. So the best way to prepare for any of these different interviews is, once again, go back to that description of the internship or job and really determine what's needed for this role. What are the skills that are important? And then think through examples on how you've used those in the past. And then if you're not sure about something, then it's good to brush up on a concept. Like, if they ask you to have a particular skill and you know you learned it in the classroom, then definitely go back to that homework assignment or to that lecture and refresh your memory on what that was and how you worked through that concept or skill. And if you're not sure at any point, it's okay to be honest and let the recruiters know that you're not really sure or you haven't really used a particular skill yet. But you would want to then talk about how you would find the information or how you plan to learn the skill. And that's totally appropriate. So yeah, as I mentioned, a lot of interviewing has to do with sharing examples and stories from your life. So it's good to practice as much as you can these relevant examples. And of course, we're here to help you in the Career Center with forming these stories and these examples and giving you feedback on how you're doing there. And then you want to research the company and the interviewers as much as you can before the interview. You want to show that you've done your homework when you're in the interview. They're likely going to ask you, why do you want to work here? And it's good to have a couple specific reasons for why. And then there's lots of interviewing guides out there that you can use to prepare. I linked to one here that's data science specific that I think is great, but hopefully just doing a Google search, you can find some guides if that's how you would like to prepare, if you're that kind of person who likes to read through articles. If you are interested in software engineering, then it's good to practice for coding problems that you might encounter in an interview. And I put a list of websites here that have problem sets that you can work through that are very similar to the problems you would encounter in an interview. And then I put a link here to the website Kaggle, which is the same thing, but more data science specific. Yeah, so those are great websites to utilize. For other roles, I should mention, like mechanical engineering, civil, electrical, chemical engineering, there generally aren't going to be like coding problems or specific assessments, but you're likely just going to get like questions that ask you your familiarity with technical concepts or with technical processes. where software engineering and data science, they usually have like formal assessments where you're going to have to work through a problem set of some kind. So these are the kinds of technical interviewing platforms that you'll come across. Each company uses a different one. You know, these are some of the common ones, but if you're not sure what your platform will be for the interview, definitely ask, because you want to be as prepared as you can to like download any software that you might need to beforehand, or just get familiar with the platform ahead of time. As I mentioned, sometimes, and this is more so once again for software engineering or data science, they're going to send you technical problems to complete on your own. So if they send you a problem to complete on your own, it's good to ask generally how much time you're going to have, because sometimes these platforms will only allow you to complete the problem in one sitting. So you want to make sure you set aside enough time to complete it. It might be a couple hours. And then specifically for software engineering, recruiters can check for plagiarized code, or if you copy and paste your answers into the assessment platform. So if you copy and paste answers in, sometimes they might assume plagiarism. So to avoid assumptions, just type directly into the platform. Cool. So I think I already covered this pretty much. These are just some, behavioral questions or general questions you might come across. It's a good indication that they want a story or an example if they start the question with, of course, give me an example, or describe a situation in which you've done this, or tell me about a time when you did this. They're really looking for you to provide a story, right, of a particular situation for them. So I wanted to cover a brief model on how you can answer those questions that you would need to provide an example for. Did I not put that in here? I'll put this in the chat. So you may have already heard of this, but it's called a STAR model, STAR. There's lots of story models out there, so you don't have to use this one, but I usually recommend using it because I've heard from recruiters that they actually form their questions using this model. So it's a great way to answer the question. So you would start with simply describing a situation, that's what the S stands for, in which you used a relevant skill. And then you would describe briefly the tasks that you had in that particular situation, right? What was your role, or what, were your responsibilities? But then spend the majority of your example focusing on the specific actions you took to exhibit the skill. So, for example, let's say they are wondering about how you worked on a team. So you'd want to break down for them how you do that. Do you reach out to your teammates to see if they need support? Do you plan meetings and then ask people to share their opinions? Or do you do things like set benchmarks and deadlines for a project? So those little details will be great to mention when you're giving your story, because it'll really help the recruiter visualize how you would do teamwork, right? Instead of just saying it, you're showing how you've done that. And then lastly, it's good to end your story with the results. Just like the bullet points on your resume, always give the outcome or what you accomplished, right? How did you achieve something using the skill that they're wondering about? All right. And then if you're asked to answer a technical question in front of the interviewers, or code in front of them, or solve a problem in front of them, you always want to explain your thought process. Be communicative. Let them know your step-by-step, right? Why are you making the decisions that you're making? It's good to communicate that way. And in a lot of situations, they're going to be looking for that. They're going to not only assess your technical ability, but are you communicative? Are you collaborative? Are you solution focused? So it is appropriate if you get stuck to ask for guidance. You can ask questions or ask them to give more context to the problem. That's totally okay, because at the end of the day, when we're working with people, we want to work with people who are genuine, right, and authentic about their abilities. We want to work with people who are collaborative, right, and who communicate well. So what's often more important than actually getting the right answer is communicating and collaborating. When they're asking you a technical question, they're definitely assessing your fundamental knowledge and basic understanding, which is important. But sometimes they're going to ask you really challenging technical questions. And what's more important than getting the right answer is communicating your thought process and asking questions as you go. If you're really, really stuck and you don't know how to move forward, even asking for some advice, then it's okay to say that and then talk about how you would find the answer. What steps would you take? What resources would you use? Who might you consult in order to eventually reach the correct answer? All right, and then lastly, I wanted to touch on the end of the interview. So you definitely need to have a couple questions to ask your interviewers. 2 or 3 is usually standard, but this is your chance to interview them, right? You want to make sure that the opportunity you're applying for is going to be good for you. So you could ask about what kinds of projects the interns work on, or are there any professional development or mentoring opportunities at the company? What, does the company culture look like in the interviewer's eyes? So this is a way for you to assess what's important to you in a job. And then it is generally good to ask for some contact information, and then you can send a thank you email after the interview. So it really depends on the company. Sometimes they'll want you to communicate just with the recruiter, even if you were interviewed by someone else. So you can always just double check at the end by mentioning that you would like to send a thank you email, and if it's best to send it directly to them or to the recruiter. And then if you were asked to provide references, it's good to inform them that they might be contacted by the company. And then it's appropriate to follow up with the recruiter about a week after the interview if you don't hear from them. Or if it's past the deadline that they said they would get back to you, totally okay to reach out to them and ask, how is the application review process going? Or mention that you're checking in about the status of your application. Okay, I know that was a lot of information, kind of like an overview, right, of resumes and interviewing for technical roles. Any questions about what I shared? You're welcome. Thanks for joining me. And as you can see here, we do just have a lot of resources for you all on our website. One thing that I like to mention is our YouTube channel. We've recorded a ton of workshops like this, as well as panel discussions that we've had with employers. So if you want to hear directly from recruiters how you can perform well in technical interviews or what they look for in technical resumes, then you can watch our recordings on our YouTube channel. Cool. Well, I think that will do it. And then I put my email on the first slide. So if either of you have questions in the future, definitely email me. Happy to answer questions that way. And then of course, scheduling an appointment is a great way to just go into more detail about your personal plan and how I can support you. All right. Well, it was great to meet you both and have a good rest of your day.